The Autobiography of George Muller, or 1.5 million Answers to Prayer. Chapter 6, Part 2, picking up on page 112, October 6, 1838. The Lord has most kindly helped us. It came to my mind that there were some new blankets in the orphan houses, which had been given some time since, but which are not needed, and might therefore be sold. I was confirmed in this by finding that Malls had got into 1 pair. I therefore sold 10 pairs, having a good opportunity to do so. Thus the Lord not only supplied again our present need for the 3 houses, but I was also able to put by the rent for this week and the next, acting out the light which He had given us this day week. There came in 9 shillings 6 dimes, besides the £7 for the blankets. The school fund also was again completely exhausted, when today and yesterday came in so much that not only the weekly salaries could be paid today, but also above £1 could be put by for rent. October 9th. Through the last mentioned supplies for the orphans, we were helped up to this day, but today we were brought lower than ever. The provisions would have lasted out only today, and the money for milk in one of the houses could only be made up by one of the laborers selling one of his books. The matron in the boys' orphan house had this morning 2 shillings left. When in doubt whether to buy bread with it or more meat, to make up the dinner with the meat which she had in the house, the baker called and left 3 quarterns of bread as a present. In this great need, some money having been given to one of the laborers, he gave 2 pounds of it, by which we were able to buy meat, bread, and other provisions. Nevertheless, even this day, low as we had been brought before this 2 pounds were given, there had been all in the houses that was needed. October 10th. The Lord had sent in so much since yesterday afternoon that we were able at our meeting this morning to divide 2 pounds and 2 dimes between the 3 matrons, whereby we are helped through this day. But now the coals in the infants' orphan house are out, and nearly so in the other 2 houses. Also the Trachino case in all the 3 houses are nearly empty. On this account, we have asked the Lord for fresh supplies. October 11th. The Father of the Fatherless has again shown His care over us. An orphan from Devonshire arrived last evening. With her was sent 2 pounds 5 sterling 6 dimes. The sister who brought her gave also a silver teapot, sugar basin, and cream jug, 48 ounces in weight. Having found true riches in Christ, there was also in the boxes 9 shillings. One of the laborers paid for a ton of coals. We obtained 16 pounds 16 sterling for the silver articles. Thus we were helped through the heavy expenses of the following days. October 16th, the day commenced with mercies. I was looking up to the Lord for help early this morning when, almost immediately afterwards, Brother T came and brought 2 silver tablespoons and 6 teaspoons, which had been left anonymously yesterday afternoon at the girls' orphan house. This afternoon I received 12 pounds from Staffordshire. On the seal of the letter which enclosed the money was Ebenezer. How true in our case! Surely this instance is a fresh Ebenezer to us, for hitherto the Lord has helped us. October 27th, Saturday. This day we have been again mercifully helped, though our need has been almost greater than ever. But thanks to our adorable Lord, this day also we have not been confounded. For there was 6 shillings in the box at the infants' orphan house, and 6 shillings came in for things which had been given to be sold. To this one of the laborers added 18 shillings. By means of this 1 pound 10 shillings, we have been able to meet all pressing demands and to procure provisions for today and tomorrow. October 30th. This evening a sister gave me 20 pounds, 10 of which were for the orphans, and 10 for the other objects. Thus we are helped for this work. November 4th, Lord's Day. There was given by a stranger last Wednesday evening at the Bethesda Chapel to one of the sisters a sovereign for the orphans, which I received today. Thus the Lord has again begun the work with mercy, and His love surely will help us through it, though, again, many pounds will be needed. November 5th. By means of the sovereign which had come in yesterday, and several small donations today, and one of the past days, together with the 2 pounds 10 shillings, which one of the laborers added of his own, 6 pounds 2 shillings 6 dimes, were divided this day between the 3 matrons, which will supply the need for 2 days at least. November 7th. The funds are now again completely exhausted. Today I divided 1 pound 3 shillings 8 dimes, which had come in yesterday. Thus the necessary wants were supplied. The Lord be praised who has helped us hitherto. One of the orphans was sent today to service, and the Lord enabled us to give her a suitable outfit. November 13th. This morning our wants was again great. I have 20 pounds in hand which have been put by for rent, but for the Lord's honor I would not take of it. Nothing had come in, and the laborers had scarcely anything to give. I went, however, to the orphan houses to pray with my fellow laborers, and if it might be, to comfort them and see what could be done. When I came there, I found that 19 shillings 6 dimes had come in this morning. On inquiry, I heard that only 2 shillings 6 dimes more was needed to carry us through the day. This one of the laborers was able to add. Thus, the Lord has again helped us out of our difficulty. One of the laborers gave some things which he could do without, and another gave a workbox to be sold for the orphans. Before this day has come to an end, the Lord has sent in 1 pound 2 shillings 4 dimes more, so that we have also a little for tomorrow. November 15th. The money which had come in the day before yesterday supplied the necessities of yesterday also. But today we were brought again very low. I went to the orphan houses to pray with my fellow laborers, not without hope that the Lord might have appeared and sent a little help. When I arrived, I found that one of the laborers had sold a few of his books, together with 2 which had been given by another laborer on the 13th, for which he had received 7 shillings. To this one of the laborers added 7 shillings 9 dimes. This 14 shillings 9 dimes supplied the most pressing necessities. When I came home, I found 1 sterling in the box at my house, and soon after received 5 shillings for a pair of fire screens, which had been given for sale. There were also 3 baskets of potatoes sent to the 3 different houses. A sack of potatoes had been ordered, but the brother who had been desired to bring them could not conveniently do so today, and thought, at this present, had been ordered from him, there would be no immediate need of them, and oh, how kind of the Lord to order it thus, for had he brought them, the payment would have taken away the money which was intended for the usual quantity of bread. But before the day was over, the Lord helped still further. In the afternoon, a gentleman from the Bath called at the boys' orphan house and gave a check for 3 pounds. Together, 4 pounds 4 shillings 9 dimes has been sent by the Lord this day. November 17th. Today, about 3 pounds was needed, and as only 15 shillings 6 dimes had come in, we found it needful to determine to dispose of a few articles of furniture, which we conveniently could do without. One of the laborers gave a good watch to be sold, which he had bought some months since, there being then no timepiece in one of the houses. In consideration of these articles to be sold, I took for the present necessities of the orphans 2 pounds 10 shillings of the money which had been put by for the rent, to be replaced when these articles could be sold at a suitable opportunity. Thus we were helped to the close of 1 more week. November 20th. Today our need was exceedingly great, but the Lord's help was great also. I went to meet with the brothers and sisters as usual. I found that 1 pound would be needed to supply the necessities of today, but 3 shillings only had come in. Just when we were going to pray, one of the laborers came in, who after prayer gave 10 shillings. While we were praying, another laborer came in who had received 1 pound. Thus we had 1 pound 13 shillings, even more therefore than was absolutely needed. November 21st. Never were we so reduced in funds as today. There was not a single halfpenny in hand between the matrons of the 3 houses. Nevertheless, there was a good dinner, and by managing so as to help one another with bread, etc., there was a prospect of getting over this day also. but for none of the houses had we the prospect of being able to take in bread. When I left the brethren and sisters at 1 o'clock after prayer, I told them that we must wait for help and see how the Lord would deliver us at this time. I was sure of help, but we were indeed straitened. When I got to Kingsdown, I felt that I needed more exercise, being very cold. Therefore I went not the nearest way home, but round by Clarence Place. About 20 yards from my house I met a brother who walked back with me, and after a little conversation gave me £10 to be handed over to the brethren, the deacons, towards providing the poor saints with coals, blankets, and warm clothing, but also £5 for the orphans and £5 for the other objects of the scriptural knowledge institution. The brother had called twice while I was gone to the orphan houses, and had I now been 1/2 minute later, I should have missed him. But the Lord knew our need, and therefore allowed me to meet him. I sent off the £5 immediately to the matrons. November 24th. This again has been a very remarkable day. We had as little in hand this morning as at any time, and yet several pounds were needed. But God, who is rich in mercy, and whose word so positively declares that none who trust in him shall be confounded, has helped us through this day also. While I was in prayer about 10 in the morning respecting the funds, I was informed that a gentleman had called to see me. He came to inform me that a lady had ordered 3 sacks of potatoes to be sent to the orphan houses. Never could they have come more seasonably. This was an encouragement to me to continue to expect help. When I came to the prayer meeting about 12 o'clock, I heard that two shillings had come in. Also £1 for a guitar which had been given for sale. The payment for this guitar had been expected for many weeks. It had been mentioned among us repeatedly that it might come just at a time when we most need it. And oh, how true. Also the watch, which had been given, was sold for £2, 10 shillings. November 25th, Lord's Day. The Lord kindly remembers us before there is absolute need. A sister who is going to leave Bristol called on me to bid farewell and gave me in parting £1, 10 shillings for the orphans. It is remarkable that almost every donation given within the last 4 months and 13 days, since our funds have been made low, has come from unexpected quarters to make the hand of God so much the more manifest. November 28th, 1838. This is, perhaps, of all days, the most remarkable as yet, so far as regards the funds. When I was in prayer this morning respecting them, I was enabled firmly to believe that the Lord would send help, though all seemed dark as to the natural appearances. At 12 o'clock I met as usual with the brothers and sisters for prayer. There had come in only 1 shilling, which was left last evening anonymously at the infants' orphan house, and which, except 2 dimes, had already been spent, on account of the great need. I heard also that an individual had gratuitously cleaned the timepiece in the infants' orphan house, and had offered to keep the timepieces in the 3 houses in repair. Thus the Lord gave even in this day a little encouragement and a proof that he is still mindful of us. On inquiry I found that there was everything needful for the dinner in all 3 houses, but neither in the infants' nor boys' orphan houses was there bread enough for tea, nor money to buy milk. Lower we had never been, and perhaps never so. We gave ourselves now unitedly to prayer, laying the case in simplicity before the Lord. Whilst in prayer there was a knock at the door, and one of the sisters went out. After the 2 brethren who labored in the orphan houses and I had prayed aloud, we continued for a little while silently in prayer. As to myself, I was lifting up my heart to the Lord to make a way for our escape, in order to know if there were any other thing which I could do with a good conscience besides waiting on him, so that we might have food for the children. At last we arose from our knees, and I said, God will surely send help. These words had not quite passed my lips when I perceived a letter lying on the table which had been brought while we were in prayer. It was from my wife, containing another letter from her brethren with £10 for the orphans. The evening before last I was asked by a brother whether the balance in hand for the orphans would be as great this time, when the accounts would be made up as the last time. My answer was that it would be as great as the Lord pleased. The next morning this brother was moved to remember the orphans, and to send today £10, which arrived soon after I had left my house, and which on account of our need was forwarded immediately to me. Thus, I was enabled to give £6 10 shilling for housekeeping and to put by £3 10 shilling for rent. November 29th, the Lord has greatly blessed our meetings for prayer. That these meetings have not been in vain, as regards the procuring of funds, has been already sufficiently seen by the many instances which have been recorded in the foregoing pages. Today, however, we have had another particular proof of this. When we met, I found that 10 shillings had come in yesterday afternoon. When I returned home, I found £1 had come in, and shortly after I received another £1. In the evening, I received £50, which was sent from Suffolk by a sister who had often expressed how gladly she would contribute more largely to the work which is in our hands, had she the means, and who just now, in this our time of need, has obtained the means to carry out the desire of her heart. I rejoice in the last donation particularly, not because of the largeness of the sum, but because it enables me to pay my brothers and sisters in the orphan houses the salary which is due to them. For though they are willing to labor without any remuneration, nevertheless the laborer is worthy of his reward. This donation also proves that the Lord is willing, even now, as formerly, to send large sums, but I expect still larger. The same sister who sent the £50 for the orphans sent at the same time £30 to be divided between Brother Craig and me for our personal expenses. How abundantly does the Lord care for us! Truly we serve a kind Master. December 6th. This day our need was again as great as ever, but the deliverance of the Lord was also as manifest as ever. This afternoon I received £100 from a sister, £50 for the orphans, and £50 for the School Bible Missionary Fund. This same sister who earns her bread with her own hands had given on October 5th, 1837, £50 towards the Boys' Orphan House, and gave for the necessities of the poor saints in August 1838 £100 more. For she had been made willing to act out those precious exhortations. Having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourself bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust does corrupt, where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust does corrupt, and where thieves do not break through and steal. Respecting the £50 of this sum, which had been given for the School Bible Missionary Fund, it is worthy of remark that we would not order reference Bibles till we had the means. We had repeatedly asked the Lord to supply us so largely, if it were His will, that at the time of the public meetings we might be able to speak again of abundance. For though for some months past the time has been fixed for the public meeting, without any reference to the state of the funds, nevertheless it might have had the appearance that we have convened the brethren for the sake of telling them about our poverty, and thus to induce them to give. December the 11th, 12th, and 13th. On these 3 days there were public meetings, at which I gave an account of the Lord's dealings with us in reference to the orphan houses, and the other objects of the Scriptural Knowledge Institution. As the work, and particularly that of the orphan houses, was begun with the benefit of the Church at large, it appeared well to us that from time to time it should be publicly stated how the Lord had dealt with us, and as the 3rd year had been completed, this seemed to be a suitable time for having these meetings. Should any one suppose, in reading the plain details of the trials through which we passed during the 4 months previous to December 9th, 1838, respecting the orphan houses, that I had been disappointed as regards my expectations as far as the funds are concerned, my answer is that the reverse is the case. For straits were expected. Long before the trials came, I had more than once stated publicly that answers to prayer in the time of need, the manifestation of the hand of God stretched out for our help, was just the very end for which the institution was established. I further state that the orphans have never lacked anything. Had I had thousands of pounds in hand, they would have fared no better than they have, for they have always had good nourishing food, the necessary articles of clothing, etc. The expenditure for the orphans from December 10th, 1836 to December 10th, 1838 was £1,664, 4 shillings, 1/4 dime. There was 2 years ago a balance of £373, 4 shilling, 8 1/2 dime in hand, and now the balance is £50, 5 shillings, 3 dimes. December 9th, 1838 through December 9th, 1839. December 16th, there was a paper anonymously put into the box at Bethesda Chapel containing £4, 10 shillings. In the box was written, quote, for the rent of the orphan houses from December 10th to December 31st, 1838. O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusts in him, unquote. In order that the reader may be able to enter into the value of this donation, I request him to read over once more what was wrote under September 29th of this year. The individual who gave this £4, 10 shillings for the rent of the orphan houses for the first 3 weeks after the public meetings, at which the matter was about the rent for the institution of the Brethren was fully stated, continued for 3 years up to December 10th, 1841, to give regularly, but anonymously, £1, 10 shilling a week for the same purpose, which was exactly the sum required every week for the rent of those 3 houses. Thus the Lord rewarded our faithfulness in carrying out the light which He had given us. December 20th. As the expenses of the orphans have been above £47 within the last 6 days, and as but little above £13 has come in, and as the money for printing the report had to be kept back in order that we might not be in debt, we were again today very low in funds, though it is but 6 days since the public meetings. As I knew that tomorrow several pounds would be needed to supply the matrons, I gave myself this morning to prayer. About quarter of an hour afterwards I received £3, the payment of a legacy left by a sister, who fell asleep in Jesus several months since, in Ireland. Besides this, I received from the brother, through whom the legacy was paid, £2, 10 shillings for the orphan fund. With this £5, 10 shillings, I hope to be able to meet the expenses of tomorrow. I observe here that it might have been naturally supposed that every heart would be touched through what was publicly stated about the remarkable manner in which the Lord had provided for us for nearly 150 days, and that consequently an abundance of means would have come in. To this is to be added that £50, 5 shillings, 3 dimes was in hand on December the 10th, and that therefore it seems not likely that we should be in need. And yet by December 20th we were again so poor that there was nothing to meet the expenses of the next day, as has just been related. All this came not unawares upon me and my fellow laborers, for we had been taught to look off from all creature expectations to living God. December 22nd, a solemn day. I received today the information from my father that my brother died on October 7th. When I saw him in April this year, he was living in open sin and in disunion with my father. I cannot learn that his end was different from his life, so that I have no comfort in his death. Of all the trials that can befall a believer, the death of an unconverted near relative seems to me one of the greatest. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? Must be the stay of the believer at such a time, and by grace it is my stay now. I know that the Lord is glorified in my brother, whatever his end has been. Whether in his last hours like the thief of the cross was he saved, or whether he died in sin and unbelief, yet I do know, as to myself, desire from my heart to adore that grace which kept me as a branch out of the burning many years ago. May the Lord make this event a lasting blessing to me, especially in leading me in earnestness and prayer for my Father. December 28th. This evening the Lord kindly sent help when we were again destitute of the means of providing for tomorrow. I received £20, half for the orphan fund and half for the other funds, with Ecclesiastes 9:10. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. December 29th. A sister, having felt herself particularly stirred up about the orphans, as she writes, sent this evening £7, £5 from herself, and £2, which had been sent from the East Indies. To the Lord this is to be ascribed, who, in answer to our prayers, makes this impression on the hearts of His children. The Lord has been pleased to give us during the past year, for my personal needs, £350, 4 shillings, 8 dimes. During no period of my life had I such need of means, on account of my own long illness and that of my dear wife, and on account of the many particular calls for means as during the past year, but also during no period of my life has the Lord so richly supplied me. Continuing, Chapter 6, Severe Trials and Early Orphan Work. 1839, January the 11th. Since December 29th, there came in several donations for the orphans, so that we were supplied before what we had in hand was quite gone. On the 7th, however, all our money was again expended, when a brother who is staying here gave me £10. Today, when this £10 was given out, I received from London £3, 7 shillings, and 4 shillings besides. Thus the Lord, as our need is, sends help without our asking anyone. January 17th, this afternoon, all which was in hand was given for housekeeping, and I was again penniless. The Lord, however, was mindful of this, and in the evening 2 sovereigns were left anonymously at my house. January 22nd, a brother, formerly an officer in the Navy, who for Jesus' sake has given up his rank and pay, gave 3 silver tablespoons, 3 silver forks, and 2 teaspoons to be sold for the benefit of the orphans. The produce of them was £1, 5 shillings, which has come in besides, enabled us to meet the expenses of today and tomorrow. January 28th, Monday morning, we are now quite reduced as to means for the orphans. The little which is in hand has been put by for rent. How the Lord will help us through this day I know not, but I have faith in God. He will help us, though I know not how. But God's help, I purpose not to take a single penny of what is in hand, because it is due for rent. This morning and afternoon there came in from one individual 4 shillings 6 dimes, and from a sister who earns her bread by needlework £1. There was also £1, 10 dimes, taken out of the boxes in the orphan houses, which our need had led us to open. Thus we were helped through the day, and have £1 left for tomorrow. February 1st, there is no money in hand for the orphans. I am waiting on God. Just when Brother T had come to tell me that the need for this day will be 19 shillings 6 dimes, one of the laborers in the work came and gave us £1. February 3rd, Lord's Day, a sister sent from her sick bed this evening £2 for the orphans, with Ecclesiastes 9:10. Thus the Lord has supplied our need for tomorrow. February 7th, this day has been one of the most remarkable days as regards the funds. There was no money in hand. I was waiting upon God. I had asked Him repeatedly, but no supplies came. Brother T called between 11 and 12 o'clock to tell me that about £1, 2 shillings would be needed to take in bread for the 3 houses and to meet the other expenses. But we had only 2 shillings 9 dimes, which yesterday had been taken out of the boxes in the orphan houses. He went to Clacton to make arrangements for the reception of 3 orphans, for though we had no funds in hand, the work goes on, and our confidence is not diminished. I therefore requested him to call on his way back from Clacton to see whether the Lord might have sent any money in the meantime. When he came, I had received nothing, but one of the laborers, having 5 shillings of his own, gave it. It was now 4 o'clock. I knew not how the sisters had got through the day. Just before I went out to preach, 5 shillings was brought to my house, which I took as a token for good. I had been asking the Lord for a passage of the Word to speak from this evening, and at last was directed to Matthew 6, 19 through 34, a subject most applicable to our circumstances. After the meeting was over, I went to the girls' orphan house to meet with the brethren for prayer, and to give the 5 shillings which I had received, and to see what could be done. When I arrived there, I found that a box had come for me from Barnstable. The carriage was paid, else there would have been no money to pay for it. See how the Lord's hand is in the smallest matters? The box was opened, and it contained, in a letter from her sister, £10, of which £8 was for the orphans and £2 for the Bible fund. From brethren at Barnstable, £2, 11 shillings 2 dimes, and from another brother 5 shillings. Besides this, there were in the box various articles of clothing and also trinkets to be sold. On inquiry how the sisters had been carried through the day, I found it thus. Everything was in the houses which was needed for dinner. After dinner, a lady at Thornbury came in bought one of my narratives and one of the reports, and gave 3 shillings besides. About 5 o'clock afterwards, the baker came to the boys' orphan house. The matron of the girls' orphan house, seeing him, went immediately with the 6 shillings 6 times, which he had just received, to prevent his being sent away, as there was no money in hand at the boys' orphan house, and brought that bread to the amount of 4 6d. The 2 remaining shillings, with the little which we had in hand, served to buy bread for the girls' orphan house. By the donations sent in the box, I was enabled to give a rich supply to the matrons before the close of the day. How sweet to see our Father thus caring for us. To a person who has spiritual eyes, what a proof is one such day of the most particular providences of God, and we have had many such days. February 13th, this afternoon I paid out the last money which we had in hand, and in giving it to Brother T said, "We have now again to look to the Lord for our future supplies." This evening £5 was given to me, which had come in under the following circumstances. A gentleman and lady visited the orphan houses and met at the boys' orphan house 2 ladies who were likewise visiting. One of the ladies said to the matron of the boys' orphan house, "Of course you cannot carry on these institutions without a good stock of funds." The gentleman, turning to the matron, said, "Have you a good stock?" She replied, "Our funds are deposited in a bank, which cannot break." The tears came into the eyes of the inquiring lady. The gentleman, on leaving, gave to the master of the boys £5, which came in when I had not a penny in hand. Ending on page 122, March 5th, 1839.